Hi, my name is Matt Staley. Welcome back to Personal History. This episode is part 2 of Harold's Wasted Life as recounted by Ben Ramsier. If you'd like more background on the origin of the story and on Ben, please view part 1. If you enjoy content like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Same one?
Yeah.
But Matthew, as he grew older, these things kept getting worse. And he finally got involved in some serious things. He was brought up before the court 2 or 3 times. And his dad didn't want to see him go to reform school. Back in those days, it was a terrible thing, even worse than it is now. So his dad would pay him buy his way out. But this particular time, he was in court for about the 3rd time. And I just don't remember what it was all about, but the judge had fined him $25. Now, back in those days, Matthew, $25 was a lot of money. That was more than a week's wages. So when the judge says, and that will be $25 fine, without waiting any longer, Harold just jumped up right in the court and stuck his hands down in his pockets, and he says, "I have it right here in my jeans, Judge." Well, the judge did not like that at all, and he kind of looked over his glasses at him and frowned on that, and he continued, "And 1 year in the state penitentiary. Do you happen to have that right there in your jeans?" And that was bad news. That was his first trip to the penitentiary. But the thing that amazed the people was, the neighbors and all concerned, he seemed to do better in prison than he did out in natural life. As a matter of fact, he seemed to like it. So he served his term and did so well. He was trusted. He drove the vehicles outside. He was what they call a trustee in those days. And he was a beautiful singer. He became the bass singer in the West Virginia State Prison Quartet, and could sing gospel music, beautiful. So at the end of when he had done his time and he got out, he came home, and he didn't mix with these old buddies. He didn't seem to have much in common with them, and they just could not understand this. They couldn't believe that he had turned over a new leaf. They didn't think that was possible, because each night in the evening he would dress up about 6 o'clock, and he would take his dad's boat and he would cross the river, and he wouldn't get back till 10:30, 11 o'clock that night. Well, they knew that this was something that he wasn't telling them. So one night they followed him, and he went over into the high side, and he walked out on top of the hill a couple miles and out the ridge to a little church, and he was conducting revival services out there. And he was really had these people hoodwinked. But when he got up to preach that night, and his old buddies, 2 or 3 of them, was right on the front seat, he knew then that the jig was up. So he excused himself momentarily from the pulpit, and he never returned. The services never was finished that night, because he slipped back down and came across the river. And what he had been doing, he had been taking the offering each night, and they were fine, good old people. They was giving him quite a nice offering, because he was a beautiful singer, and so he would sing for them, and he had been in the services in the penitentiary enough, in the religious services. He knew enough scripture that he wasn't doing too bad of a job preaching. So then that his buddies had put an end to his preaching career, then he started a buddying around with them again. But he liked to hunt, and the hunting season was in, and him and a couple more, they went about 10, 12 miles down below town to a nice little farm down there to squirrel hunt. Well, they drove up to this place and had several acres of woodland on them, beautiful, it's a perfect place to hunt. So they elected him to get permission. So he went up and knocked on the door, and it was an elderly man and lady that lived there. They had farmed this farm, but they were too old, so they asked him in. And the old man said, yes, you're welcome to hunt. And the hunting is good. They've been getting a lot of squirrels, but he said, would you do me a favor before you go? And I'd really appreciate it. And of course, Harold was always ready to help somebody. More curious, wondering what the favor was, I think, than actually wanting to help him. So the old man said that he had this horse that was several years old. It had been a good horse, had been a faithful horse, but the winters were so hard on it, and it was crippled, and it would just be doing him a real favor if Harold would destroy the horse, in other words, kill it. And of course, Harold said he would do that. So he thanked the old man and went out to the car where the buddies were waiting, and they was anxious to get started, and they asked, well, what about it? Can we hunt? And Harold told them, he says, no. The old man said he didn't even want to catch us on his land. He called him a bad name, and to convince them that he was telling the truth, he says, I'll fix him, I'll just kill his horse. So he just reached in the car and got out his gun, and his friends still didn't believe him, and he walked over to the fence, and he shot that horse and killed it dead, and they didn't even wait on him. They just drove away and left him standing there. They wasn't going to take no chance of getting in trouble with him. But Matthew, the older he got, it seemed as though he never got any better. And so he eventually got lonesome for his friends up in the prison. At least that's the way it seemed. So one day he went down along the river, and for no reason other than to get himself back up into the state prison, beat up a necktie salesman and took 600 neckties from him. And then he went to the phone and he called his mother up and told her that he was just lonesome for the boys up north, what he had done, and he apologized to her, but said he liked it up there and it just like home. And he said, Mom, I'm just going back home. And that he did. He got about 5 years that time out of it. And the last time I heard, Harold had died in a penitentiary. And you know, Matthew, it was such a wasted life because he truly had a lot of talent. He could just talk and have people like him. He was very persuasive, but there was just something about him that no one, no neighbors, no one ever understood Harold. He just seemed to be just naturally born an ornery boy.